Hi everyone, welcome back to History San Diego. I'm George Farrar. Previously on History San Diego, I profiled the explorations of San Diego Bay by Juan Rodriguez Cabrillo and Sebastian Vizcaino, described their encounters with and profiled the Native Americans, the Kumeyaay. We learned about the 1769 conquest, the construction of the first mission in the San Diego area, Mission San Diego de Acaya, and the uprisings that happened, the failed attempts to expel the Spanish conquerors. Which brings us to 1775 on the timeline. Now is a point in History San Diego when we begin to place what we know of today as the San Diego area in the context of being on the continent of North America. The 1770s were a turbulent time on both coasts involving global powers. So we're going to look at some maps. We'll start with a modern map, courtesy of the National Park Service, about the Anza Expedition. In 1775, an expedition of settlers began. It was led by a Spanish colonel, Juan Bautista de Anza. And it started in May of 1775, and they wound their way north, then west, then northwest, then north, as we can see by this map, courtesy of the National Park Service. It is particularly notable because how they went through the eastern San Diego County area, and how when you think of the things that were going on in 1775 that we talked about in our prior episode, think about what this means in the context of the Spanish Empire staking their claim. So they have the mission, they have the Presidio in San Diego, and now they have a military man leading a group of settlers, migrating up to create San Francisco. So he'll lead this expedition, and this is something that's something to think about with all that's happened. From 1577 to 1580, British explorer, slave trader, and privateer Sir Francis Drake circumnavigated the world. A lot of knowledge was gained on that circumnavigation. And also, British explorer and privateer Thomas Cavendish plundered lots of Spanish gold in his time. He also, around this time, circumnavigated the world. So, eventually there was this beautiful map, a representation of the world as it was known then. And so we think about this. When we look at this, we're looking at the continents, we're looking at the world, we're looking at the struggles there was going to be for trade, staking claims of land, keeping commercial lanes open, keeping trading and supplies going, keeping settlements fed and nourished and controlled, and doing all of this in a world of sailing, of people on ships and boats, and there were slaves that were taken, and they were transported on ships, and they were brought to the east coast of the United States and all over on the east coast. And so there was this dynamic that began. And so we'll start to see in the New World, we'll start to see the lines start to descend upon the paper as the powers that be, the powerful trading nations of the time, exerted their muscle through military might, through settlement. Let's now flash forward to 1774 and look at a modern map depicting the lay of the land back then. So, of course, we see the Spanish possessions, right? We see Oregon country. We see the province of Quebec, Indian country, West Florida and East Florida, and then, of course, we see the 13 British colonies. And there was a lot of struggle as we look to the east. There was a lot of struggle to what was happening between the powers, the British, the French, the Spanish, and so all of that was sorting out. And so the French and Indian War, of which our first president, George Washington, fought in, was a big flashpoint. And it was going to precipitate some changes. So in 1763, the British get control of Spanish Florida, and they divide it into West Florida and East Florida, and they get possession of the land east of the Mississippi River. They get that, and the Spanish have west of there, as we saw. And we see a little bit here on the western side, we see that. We see Louisiana. Now we're going to think of the Louisiana Purchase later on in the early years of the United States of America. But at this point, there is not a United States of America. So it's really interesting when you really look at this time in the history of North America. We have the 13 British colonies, and we have the province of Quebec, we have Canada, we have the Hudson Bay Company as we look further to the north. So we're looking at an interesting dynamic. If you look at it, you see Illinois country. That's interesting. That's the fascinating thing about maps. And so what I'm wanting to do in our show today is look at the early settlement of North America, development of North America, and how that relates with what's going to happen in the coming years in the timeline as we go forward. Because as we can see here, we know, of course, later on that people are going to keep moving further and further west, and this is going to have dramatic developments with migration, with trade, the practice of slavery is going to be a big factor. So when we look at the East Coast, we need to keep in mind the power of water transportation, the rivers. If you look at the map and you look at the rivers and you look at the ports and the bays and all these different places, that's going to spur we're going to have a lot of development, a lot of trade, and things are really going to get really big. And we're going to have a lot in the coming years in the timeline to talk about. The maps of the 1770s are spectacular. They really capture your imagination. And you know that these maps, these with illustrations and these faraway places, it must have really inspired a lot of people to explore. What I'm showing you now is an early map after the Vizcaino exploration of San Diego Bay. Now, the great thing about it, and so by the time we get to 1782, we have a more detailed marine navigation chart, Plano de Puerto de San Diego, and we get a lot more specific detail for navigation, And this means a lot because this improves navigation, which makes more trade possible, makes expeditions and trips safer, and there'll be more and more activity in San Diego Bay. And so this is an amazing time. And now I'm going to read to you from a description of the chart, the navigation chart, that is available from the California State University Monterey Bay Digital Commons. 1782. The chart of the port of San Diego is based on a manuscript map made by Juan Pantoja y Ayaga during a 7-week exploration of the bay between August 21st and September 28th, 1782. The chart was revised in 1786 with the addition of the notes. It depicts the San Diego Bay and surrounding area, including the Mission, Presidio, ranches, and soundings. It's thought to be the first reliable map of the bay. This map was number 5 in the atlas for the voyage of the Supplemental and Mexican schooners to the recognition of the Strait of Juan de Fuca in 1792, published in 1802. So this part that I read is an excerpt from the CSUMB Digital Commons. There's also a portion that talks about how it relates to establishing the international boundary line south of the San Diego Bay. So fascinating times. And we look a little bit further in to another map. Here we have a 1787 hand-drawn map. And so once again, I'll read a portion of a description of the map from the CSU MB Digital Commons. It depicts the two Californias following the initial Spanish occupation in 1769 that identified 9 missions founded and presided over by Father Junipero Serra in Alta California, as well as 4 presidios and the El Camino Real. And I zoomed us in now onto the Puerto de San Diego. And so it's really nice to be able to come to you once in a while and go over with you some of these maps and see some of the craftsmanship, the artistry, and what is represented as the political, economic, and cultural happenings of these lands, and how it all relates with San Diego and what we know of today as California, and when we go further back go further out looking at North America. And so much is going to happen in the coming years on this timeline that we're on. So we're going to go back on our next show, and we're going to talk about everything going forward in the San Diego area from 1776 forward, and from time to time I'll be talking with you about what's going on elsewhere in North America and throughout the world as we talk more about San Diego's amazing, fascinating history. And I want to thank you for watching this show number 6 of our History San Diego series. And I want to invite you, if you haven't already done so, to please subscribe. If you like the show, please like it. And if you have some thoughts, let me know what you think. I want to invite you also to check out our Facebook page, History San Diego. So we'll have our show about San Diego after the 1775 revolt, looking at the years 1775 to 1789 in show 7. In May, we'll have show number 8, which will be our season 1 finale. It'll be our field trip to Balboa Park, and I'll have a great time showing you my time at Balboa Park. and we'll talk about what happened on History San Diego, looking at that timeline. It's 1542 to 1789, Season 1. And then this summer, I'm going to present to you the Pacific Milestone Story. It's what I call the summer show. Every summer, I'll present to you a longer form show about something from San Diego history. And I know you'll enjoy it. Then this fall, we'll look at the founding years beyond 1789. And I have a lot to bring you and a lot to talk about. And we'll continue to talk about San Diego in the North American context because so much is going to be happening in these years ahead. So I want to thank you for watching. It's been great to present these shows to you. Take it easy. See you later.